Wait, what are you doing here, fake Ian?
Didn't you know? I have a date with Kyle, too.
I see. Then it will be a date to die for.
Hey, that's my line. Pose, swoosh.
Welcome to a special edition of the BumbleKast. I'm your host, Ian Flynn, the Bumble King, and joining me as always is my Bumble co-host, Kyle, JCRB Krause.
Hello, everybody. I'm here. Welcome to the show. We have a very special guest once again joining us. The Ian from another Ian, who is another Ian. He's here. It's Ian Waffles. Hello, Mr. Waffles.
Hello. You may be here, but I am near, and I am ready to talk about some Sonic with you folks. Thank you very much for having me back.
Oh, of course.
Happy to have you back.
Yes.
Heck yeah. So, before we get into it, should I introduce myself and all that stuff, all that technical jargon?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Remind the folks at home if they haven't listened to the last one. And if not, shame on you.
How
There's
dare
a lot of
you.
waffles in that.
Go back. Go back. Look for the one with Shadow holding a stack of waffles.
Anyway, so my name's Ian Waffles. I have a YouTube channel by the same name, Twitter by the same name, and I mostly just make, I allegedly make YouTube videos, like once a year. So that's my thing. That's what I do. And currently I'm working on a Kingdom Hearts 2 video, so if that's something you'd be interested, go check that out. Otherwise, I make videos on anime characters, just kind of analyzing some that I like in My Hero Academia, Chunibyo, stuff like that. And then currently I'm also working on an Archie Sonic the Hedgehog retrospective, so that might be something that, the folks at home and your audience might be into. So keep a lookout for that. It'll be on the channel Low Art. So just look forward to that if that's something you're into. But yeah, great to be here. Great back talking to you.
Yes. So now that you're here, what do you want?
Well, it's not what I want. It's what it's implied that I want.
Uh-oh.
So today what I wanted to talk about is subtext. So, and mostly in the form of how that is kind of used in the pre-reboot era of the Archie Sonic comics. Because what I mostly like about those characters is that when you came onto the book, pretty much every character has like at least 3 layers of baggage. And so what was very fun about that comic was that seeing you kind of add in like a level of like wit or enjoyability or kind of like a charm to the characters while still keeping the baggage and allowing that to inform the characters and a lot of their actions in ways that sometimes go unsaid. And so I just basically what I kind of want to do is basically come in here and be like, hey, here's a theory I had about this character. Was that something, or a story idea? Was that something you were going for? And if not, or if so, regardless, just kind of use that as a way to just talk about whatever. So if I mention a certain character and you're just like, yes, that was true, then, we might talk about the actual topic itself. Basically just a framing device to just talk about pre-reboot Archie Sonic, because that's my favorite era, and I just want to talk about it with you again.
All right. Now, with the caveat of I haven't worked on that material in years, so the old memory attic is a wee bit dusty and full of moths, at least one of which is summoned by 2 tiny twins that can sing. So,
Yes.
I'll do my best. I will do my best.
Yeah, and I wanted to clarify that, I'm not coming in here looking for like the correct answer as to what was the intention, because at the end of the day, I know you're very much like in favor of death of the author in a lot of ways like this, where it's like, hey, whatever you get out of the character, you get out of the character. This is more just like a fun way to kind of look back on this stuff and then just talk about it for fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just for an example of subtext that in the comic, just for anyone who might be like, all right, but what is he talking about? So an example I brought up on the BumbleKast as a question was I kind of had mentioned during the Iron Dominion arc how they never explicitly say that the reason they don't suspect Nicole as a liability, even though she's this digital being that the Iron Queen should very obviously be able to control, nobody ever thinks of that. And they never explicitly say this, but it always seemed like it was implied that the reason is because Nicole is their friend. They don't see their city as this techno fortress, this prison that they could be, turned against them. They just see it as, this is Nicole and this is the home she built. That's never explicitly stated, but that's definitely implied and kind of in the characters just based on the history they have. And so when you kind of had responded in that BumbleKast saying like, yeah, that's what I intended, it made me feel like, oh, okay, yeah, there really is a lot to these characters, even if intentional or not, because just how much history they had. So yeah, just real quick, I wanted to ask, like, before we jump in, are there any characters that you enjoy that you kind of like have something that you sort of read into them and think like that's an aspect of their character that I really like, but you don't know if it's ever been explicitly stated? Do you have anything like that?
Oh,
and not just with Sonic, with anything.
yeah. I feel like this would have been easier to pull it back in the day when the book was still fresh and people were responding to it, and I was there at ground level getting the feedback and going, yeah, that's great, but what about this part? What about that part? Why isn't anybody mentioning that part? But it's been so long now, I can't remember. There's a part of my subconscious screaming, you don't remember that? You were enraged! And it's like, obviously not that much because I didn't retain it. But one of the universal things I tried to do in the book was find something that I enjoyed about every character. Like, one of the things that I had trouble with early on was Sonic was one of my least favorite characters because he was a jerk.
Yeah.
He was a jock and he wasn't approachable. It's like, okay, but he's the main character. You got to be able to write the main character in the book. What is it about him that, you enjoy? What is it about him that is cool? And eventually I found that point and I was like, oh, okay, well, now, great. Yeah, that's easy. Now I enjoy Sonic. And it doesn't have to be an excuse to bring Knuckles in because Knuckles is my boy and Knuckles is the best.
Correct.
And even characters that I didn't initially like or characters that I couldn't find any reason to enjoy, but they had still served a purpose. It's like, okay, why? What purpose do they serve in the narrative? And what can I do with them that would be something I would enjoy? And it made writing it a whole lot of fun. And generally it was very well received because if I was having fun, a lot of other people were having fun too.
Yeah, for sure. I think to go off Knuckles real quick, because that's a great example. One of the things that always fascinated me about the Enerjak arc was that you seemed to try to make it very clear that it wasn't outright brainwashing, that there was still a piece of Knuckles inside there. Like, Finitivus, what he wants to do is destroy everything, get rid of everything. However, Enerjak Knuckles wants to save Remington and put his life back on track. Take Albion or take the echidnas and keep them safe in Albion. He wants to he doesn't kill all the dingoes. He sends them into the desert, still on Angel Island. He kills the one guy though, of course. And then you have and then of course he tries to go to his friends and be like, "Hey guys, wanna hang out with God me? I think that'd be pretty cool." And so what I enjoyed about that is that he has this very long arc afterwards of kind of dealing with that. And it seemed like you never gave a definitive answer of like how much was him, how much was the spell, how much was all these different things. And that kind of allowed for a pretty mature answer to it, which is what happened, and you have to move on and do what's best. So I just wanted to know, to you, was it more so a brainwashing thing, or did you always kind of intend for there to be this kind of question of, well, how much is Knuckles,
It was a corruption of who he was.
Yes.
So it wasn't brainwashing, it was just...
twisted.
It's a degree of brainwashing, I guess, in that Knuckles in his right mind would never do those things.
No. Yeah.
But at his core, he's a very straight shooter. He doesn't like politics. He doesn't like negotiating. He doesn't like to wait or plan. If there is a problem, you solve it. Mm-hmm. That's it. If there is a problem, you punch it. That is Knuckles. And it's so wonderfully refreshing. And so much of his backstory pre-reboot was this ever-escalating network of subterfuge and lies and half-truths and things done, quote-unquote, for the greater good. And, he's told this, he's told that. Well, that truth is not entirely true, and you have to contextualize it like this, and you can't really act out that way. And here's these expectations. And all of that is just burdensome to Knuckles. So part of what Finitivus' spell did was remove the, super ego, I guess, if we're going to go Freudian, and just say, no, you have the power to fix things.
Yeah.
Fix it. And so he just do. And in a lot of ways, he wasn't wrong. The dingoes were a problem. They had to go away. The cybernetic fetishism of the Dark Legion was, against the principles of the guardianship. So,
which he followed.
Yeah, it's gone now. There, I fixed it. You're doing a bad thing. Now you're not. Yeah. There's no greater thought to it, which is somewhat Knuckles because he can get that tunnel vision. But it was also part of the spell saying, don't worry about it. Don't think too hard about it. Just, you're doing the right thing. Do.
Yeah.
Do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think ultimately what that allows for is that what you don't want in a story, right, is you don't want the characters to dwell on things that you as the audience go like, well, stupid, why do you feel dumb? Why do you feel bad about that? You didn't do anything wrong, You don't want to have that kind of like frustration. And so what I think that kind of allowed for is, I don't know if this was intentional too, is like, yeah, you can have him have those fears and those doubts of like, but I still did it, or like, oh, but that, I remember it, it was still me. And they're like, well, it wasn't entirely you. He's like, yeah, but I still did it,
Yeah.
Or, I could have prevented it if I had went to help my dad earlier. So was that kind of always intentional too, to have like that, to like, when you were writing Knuckles' is kind of like his breakdown and his kind of guilt, did you think it was something where we were supposed to go like, yeah, no, I think there is a little bit that you can maybe hold on yourself, but you shouldn't take it all on for yourself? Or was it supposed to be where we're like, nah, dude, it was all Finidivus, like, get over it?
No, in a greater scope, it was meant to be kind of a study of, if you do something wrong or bad, there should be some culpability, whether it was intentional or not.
Yeah.
You need to take responsibility for it. And that was the issue Knuckles had, was that he swung too hard in the other direction. That he was, at least briefly, was being too penitent, and instead of accepting what he had done and working to correct or to atone, he decided to shut everything out as punishment and kind of shutting down. And that's not a healthy way to deal with anything like that.
No.
So it was more, I mean, yeah, there's the side of Knuckles, and the audience is like, you were not really at fault, buddy. Get over yourself. But personally, I was thinking in more general terms with that particular plot beat.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah. Cool. And I think that also what helps is that you have two different timelines of Knuckles who become Enerjak or given to their chaos powers, and they do the same thing. So it's kind of even more like you have even more darker reflections of Knuckles with the Dark Universe Enerjak, and then the 25 years later before King Shadow Knuckles, who like literally, he did all his stuff. He killed Eggman and all those things. So yeah, no, I always thought that was really cool. And I guess transfer over to a similar topic, which would be Mina. It seemed like with the Mina and Nicole situation, it was a situation of Mina's point was correct, which is that we need to, keep the city, the city we need to have responsibility for everything that's going on. People need to watch out for Nicole. But the problem seemed to be that she didn't treat Nicole like a person. She treated her as just a threat, a monster. And so it seemed like even if Nagus had any sort of culpability in making it worse and enhancing the fear of the people, her song still has, lyrics such as like, she's everywhere. Oh, dear God, not that far, but she's everywhere. She's in everything. Ah. So I think what I liked about, I just want to know if that was a similar thing where you were kind of writing it from, we're supposed to know, like, Mina, don't feel bad. It was an evil wizard. Or was there kind of that part of, well, you didn't really take Nicole's feelings into account?
Part of it is we didn't get to see a lot of the occupation when Sonic and everyone was away.
Yeah.
So the readers didn't get to see what Mina and the citizens experienced. They didn't see Iron Nicole leading the forces through the city and dragging people away and overseeing legionization and all that. We're only told that, and that can only go so far. So that was a bit of a structural shortcoming. But ultimately, Mina was right.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people disagreed on, because Nicole way better.
Yeah.
Mina has always been kind of on the fringe. So to have someone who is this fringe character call out one of the mainstays, you're like, how dare?
Yeah.
But at least from where I was sitting, Mina was right. Yes, you have to, no, she didn't take Nicole's feelings into consideration, but at the same time, you have someone who is literally everywhere. Mina's bed is Nicole.
Yeah.
Mina's flatware is Nicole. Mina's house is Nicole. The yard outside Mina's house is Nicole. The walls that circle the entire city is Nicole. She is at all times everywhere with access to you on the most intimate level, and nobody's questioning this. And then the Iron Dominion did their thing, and it was the worst case scenario. Sonic saves the day, and it's like, okay, back to normal.
Yeah.
No precautions, no public statement, no safeguards, firewalls, anything. You're just going to go back to the status quo that we were at before the crisis. How is this okay? Why is everyone treating this as normal? It's not. And so I'm going to write this song that's going to express my terror at this ghost in the shell.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping people will understand the absolute messed up nature of this. And then, so the intention was pure. It was meant for Activision to open a discussion when none was being had, because nobody questions the freedom fighters. They're the heroes. If they say it's okay, it's okay. Which is kind of where Hamlin was coming from as well, is that you just accept these heroes at face value when it can become more complex than that, and they don't always have the right answer, especially
it does
Sonic.
and then it does with Nagas.
Right. And then Nagas went on to put the negative spin on it and make it worse, which is, what jerks do. They capitalize on a bad situation. But I have gone on a long tangent. But basically, Mina was right. I just didn't do the best job of showing why she was right.
Yeah. Well, my main thing is I always, agreed with her. I think it makes perfect sense. My more thing was that you wrote her having an apology. So I just didn't know if we were supposed to, if your intention was, we're supposed to look at this and go, Mina, come on, girl. Or was it in response to people thinking that she was too hard on Nicole? Would you maybe not have originally had that apology?
Well, no, there would have been an apology or a reconciliation of some kind at some point, because Mina is a good person.
Yeah.
And as someone who has been on the fringe socially, and someone who helped Ash find himself, she wouldn't want Nicole to feel like an outcast. Like, all the stuff that happened to Nicole, her exiling and all that, was way more than Mina would have ever wanted. She just wanted someone to look at the situation, introduce some kind of safeguard for Nicole's health, for everyone's health. The extremes that were taken were nothing that she would ever want.
For sure.
But it was also partly to kind of soothe the boo-boos of the folks who were just absolutely livid that Mina would ever question their darling cinnamon roll that is Nicole. It's like, okay, here you go. Mina's coming hat in hand to apologize. She was right, but since you're missing the subtext, let's explain why they're still friends.
Yeah, well, I think it makes sense. Thankfully, I hold no Sonic characters sacred. I hate all of them equally and love all of them equally.
That's always good.
Yeah, that's been the fun thing about going through the comic with my friend Loart when we're working on this video, because he's never experienced it. So he's going through, and while he goes through, I will tell him, like, here's what the fandom thinks. And he's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. I'm like, but you have to understand that's Shadow, or you have to understand that's Tails. He's like, I don't care. I don't know these people outside of this comic. So that's always kind of fun to have those different perspectives, which, you always got to keep the audience in mind.
That is interesting, actually, to have someone who, doesn't have the baggage of knowing these characters outside of the comic through other media. Is like, that's got to be fascinating.
No, it's been very interesting. I think it's helped to, I guess, like a pure review of it, because he's just coming at it from like, okay, well, what is in this thing? Right. And it's been kind of fun. Like, for example, he gets to the Fiona, the Fiona scandal with Tails and Sonic, and I'm like, oh yeah, like, people hate this. Like, they're like, why is Tails acting this way and being treated this way by the narrative? He's like, he's a little kid. What are you talking about? Of course he's cringy.
I mean, yeah, they're not wrong.
I think the funniest one I always enjoy from that is when people are like, "How dare Sonic stand up for the monarchy? This makes no sense." I'm like, guys, I really hate to break it to you, but Archie Sonic loves the monarchy.
Yep. Sorry, this is how it's always been.
He's dated one of them. He is friends with one of them. He likes King Max. He's one of the few people who likes him. Sonic loves the monarchy.
That, and it's not entirely fair to judge that incarnation of Sonic by today's standard, because that didn't exist back then.
Right.
What we had was, Sonic, who was a citizen of the Kingdom of Acorn, and that was it. That was what he was fighting to protect. That was the foundation we built on. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's actually a good jumping on point for. I know you've been, I don't know if you see it on Twitter, but people have been kind of discussing your Dark Sonic take. You don't like Dark Sonic, Mr. Flynn? You don't like edgy Sonic? And so I was when you had discussed Dark Sonic from Sonic X, to clarify. Yeah, just making sure. That way you weren't like, he's crazy. I don't know what he's talking about. We'll let him talk.
Dark Sonic, more like Dork Sonic.
Dork Sonic. So one of the things that made me pause is I'm like, well, the kind of the interesting thing about Pre-reboot Sonic is that he is not a good boy a lot of the times.
Yeah.
And so what I thought was interesting, and obviously, and you indulged in that and wrote in that. So what I wanted to know was, is it more of a degrees thing, where I'm not trying to be like, gotcha. What I mean is more like when you have things like Sonic literally giving into despair over the freedom, like giving up on the freedom fighters. He's sitting in his room and he thinks about what Scourge says, and he doesn't go, you know what, Scourge is wrong. No, he goes, hey, Amy and Tails, like, I give up. And it's his friends who have to bring him back. So I wanted to know, is it kind of a level of degrees with you, or were you just kind of writing that because you're like, well, this just logically makes sense for this Sonic, but maybe you wouldn't have that. You in your ideal world, would that be a place that Sonic even could go, even the stuff that you wrote in Pre-reboot?
Pre-reboot, I could see that a little more easily happening. Now, the scene you're talking about, when they're at their lowest and he's thinking about Scourge's little brainworm segment. Now, you have read it much more recently, but I seem to remember it was more of Sonic admitting that he didn't have the answer, that he didn't know what to do, that he didn't have the solution. It wasn't giving up on his friends or giving up on the cause. It was a moment of humility where he goes, I can't solve this. Yeah. I can't fix this. And I'm not even going to pretend anymore. I don't know what to do, guys.
Yeah.
Throw me a line.
No,
Maybe I'm wrong. You read it much more recently, but
no, I mean, I could give you the line if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
Which is basically, she's like, what do we do? And he's like, what do we do? And he's like, dude, like, it's over. Eggman won. So, and then they cut him off. So, like, to me, kind of having a moment of him legitimately saying, like, Eggman won. We lost. Oops. But that's also, I think, still, my thing was never that he gave up on his friends. My thing was more of, it seemed like, yeah, he's in this place of, like, just existing. I think even the artist draws it where, like, you know, the little black dots in his eyes are, like, faded, you know? Because he's just moping, basically. He doesn't know what to do. And so, yeah, in my head, I'm sure this, you know, with Sonic, what always stood out to me about Pre-reboot Sonic, and because you have another moment like this during the Eggman fight, where Eggman beats him in 175. He beats him, and he's holding him in his hand, and like Sonic looks like petrified and scared, and he doesn't know what to do. And then he tosses him into the ground. He's crying, like he literally has a tear coming out of his eye. And then you just have this kind of panel of him sitting there. He lays there for a second, then Tails and Amy show up, and he kind of puts on this facade of like, oh yeah, we got this. And then throughout the whole thing, he kind of degrades, and he goes, actually, I'll go. No, you know what, I'll take care of it. I'll do it. I have to do it. It's my thing. I got to take care of it. So it kind of, I always thought it was kind of interesting that you allowed Sonic to kind of get to these low points, and it was never his enduring spirit that won the day. It was more of his enduring friends, the relationships he had built up as a support system. But I don't know if that was always the intention.
And it is hard to say because my own perception is kind of affected.
Writers change with time.
Yeah.
You gonna ask George Lucas what he thinks of the old films and then take it as word as God?
I do want to say I remember wanting to highlight why he had his friends. If he is so freaking powerful and confident, what is it that the friends bring to the table, and what is it that they do for him? If he's the hero, if he inspires everybody, then what's the other end of the exchange? So maybe that was what I was going for.
Yeah, no, I mean, regardless, I think it's a level of Dark Sonic that I think is more acceptable and palatable rather than just like a switch flip. Also, you have, and this wasn't you who wrote this, but you have Tracy Yardley writing probably one of the most disturbing Sonic lines ever, which is, "You birds are lucky that I'm not the hero." Or that I am the hero. And it's like, wait, what do you mean, Sonic? And then he literally, like, no holds barred, makes a death threat where he says, "What I would like to do right now is make sure you can't escape this falling building. But I have to go. But if my friends aren't okay, you'd better hope you can run faster than me." And it's like...
He was under a lot of stress, right?
Yeah,
man?
I can't blame him. I can't blame him.
But yeah, in that case, exposed to, what was it in Sonic X? Were they like false emeralds or dark emeralds, or I can't even remember the context.
I thought it was just simply that Cosmo and Chris got hurt, and then you have the famous English dub Eggman line where he goes, "Capturing someone is one thing, but when you actually hurt somebody, that's going too far." Dr. Eggman, you need to calm down.
Oh, 4 kids.
But,
Okay, so all that in mind, sure, I can see pre-reboot Sonic going dark Sonic.
I don't even need him to go
which
dark
isn't really
Sonic.
a thing, but we're just gonna run with it.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off. My apologies.
No worries.
Okay, but yeah, no, that's just something that I always just thought was cool. Again, this isn't more of like a gotcha, Flynn, you wrote it, but
I can be wrong.
Yeah,
this happens way more than people give me credit for.
Well,
I can be quite inept.
People seem to think you have like this huge head, like you got this ego, like you're perfect all the time.
A huge head and an ego can be separate things, Kyle.
Well, yeah, I know, but yeah, I mean, my head's huge. Have you seen it? It's like I can't fit in any hats. Anyway,
no, he's right. We went on a vacation to Cancun once, and they were selling sombreros, and everyone's like, "You should get a sombrero. It'd be great." I'm like, "Why? What am I going to do with sombrero? Besides, I kind of have a bit of a big head. I have a hard time finding hats." And the guy selling is, no. And I'm like, I'm using my handful of Spanish. No. Mi cabeza es muy grande. And they're like, no, try it on. So I went through every hat they had, and it sat on there like a fez. Yeah. And the laughter slowly gave way to this kind of esoteric horror. It's like, huh. He really does have quite the right melon. Okay. Never did get the sombrero.
Incoming message from the big giant head.
You need to watch the video. I wish I could wear hats. I feel like you would relate. Yeah, but no, that's great. Well, then I guess I'll bounce off that. Is like, nowadays, because that's always been the thing that I thought was intriguing about IDW, is that since I've been reading Pre-boot so much, and it's it's the Sonic product I go back to more. When I see Sonic kind of have this more moral stance where he's like, when he talks to the Zeddy or with Mr. Tinker, I'm always like, well, where did this come from? Because I don't remember this in other stuff. So I just wanted to know, like, for you and your kind of forming Sonic over these years. Were those traits that you kind of always saw being there, or do you think it's something that maybe you, with time, you're like, you know what, when we take a step back from, pre-boot and reboot on these things, the core of Sonic is he should be kind of like this?
No, it's definitely influenced with how modern Sonic has been more defined over the years.
Yeah. He's a good boy.
The Sonic of Sonic Adventure, who is looking at a drowning city and a big old water kaiju, and his first concern is, if we seal him away, it's not going to fix anything. Mm-hmm. That is not the mentality of pre-reboot Sonic.
Yeah.
Pre-reboot Sonic would have been, let's go kick his ass.
Yeah.
Modern Sonic is, everyone needs a chance to be free, to be who they, to reach their fullest potential.
Yeah.
And if that causes problems, well, then he'll just step up and solve those problems.
Yeah, because he can.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it is a very different type of Sonic. The core heroism, the wanting to be cool and having kind of a snarky answer for everything and being where he's needing to be and never quitting. Those are all kind of universal. But the magnanimity, I guess, of modern Sonic is something that's newer. Okay. And we didn't have that back in the day.
No.
What we had was 2 seasons of Sad AM and where other people had taken it over the years.
Oh, yeah. A lot of baggage for Mr. Sonic. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Did you have anything else to add to that?
No.
Okay. Kyle, since I've not allowed you to interact pretty much at all, I just want to know, do you have like a preferred kind of version of Sonic?
I've been here.
I haven't let you talk.
That's okay. I've interjected a couple times, but that's fine. It's hard to say, really. Honestly, I think I'm kind of at a point where I'm a little over the kind of edgy sort of hero, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
It sometimes it really depends on the character and how they're written.
Yes.
But I think I like Sonic being the more I don't know, like more heroic type rather than the always snarky type. But then I go back to Sad AM and I, get that classic Jaleel White feeling of, he's like,
it's all about execution.
Just the way the way he acts in that. I mean, he's kind of a jerk in that show too. I mean,
well, you have to remember with that, I think what adds to it is that he's tiny. And it's kind of, you kind of project onto him of him being kind of a little kid, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. There's
more forgivable.
There's some of that there. So I get it though, and I still like that incarnation of the character. I always will. I'm a classic Sonic fan at heart mainly. So, I kind of feel like being the more the more kind-hearted and understanding approach that Sonic has, with a little bit of an edge to him, but not too much. It's this I don't know. It feels like he's become more. Like, his characters become more codified recently over the years, so it's been good. I've liked that, so, and I hope that's where things keep going with him going forward. But I also kind of hope maybe they'll let him have a little bit of character development at some point. But Sega's got their thing, so I get it. They want the franchise to have
any kind of respectability.
Well, they want the franchise to have a sense of familiarity. They don't want to really change up the status quo too much. I understand that, they don't want to they don't want to go too crazy with that, but at the same time it would be nice to have some, actual growth. And I don't know, maybe some changes will be in the works soon to hopefully open up the storytelling a little bit. I'd like to see that.
Yeah. Well, 2 points on that. The first one is so I love Jerk Sonic from Pre-boot. I love baggage, edgy Sonic. Not because I like edgy characters, but just more of like I enjoy how funny he is. He's a funny asshole.
He is. He's very funny. Yes, I do not admit that. I will admit that. Yes.
I think that's where Flynn made it work so well, is you have such amazing lines as like, "Are you and Tails fighting?" It's like, "Well, no, I didn't think so." It's like, "Is this about the Fiona thing?" He's like, "Well, I thought we were over that." Or no, is Fiona still like, not hanging around her? It's like, yeah. And if she keeps this up, Tails can have her. I'm like, Sonic.
Yeah. He's pretty brutal. That is very funny. Yes.
No, that's great.
There's lots of stuff to like about that version of Sonic for sure, and having some depth and baggage to characters is it can be a good thing. It can be something you can really utilize.
Yeah.
Other times it just becomes exhausting, but sometimes, you can have some fun with it.
Oh, for sure. One of my favorites, and again, I don't know if Ian would remember like this thing, but this is like, I think, the meanest thing Sonic has ever done in like anything I've seen, where it's not like over the top and like, okay, Sonic would never do that. And it's during when they're escaping from Robotnik during like 176, and the plan is they all need to get lasered or whatever. However, through this little section, Sonic has been like pouting in the background because he doesn't like that, like, his friends are going to come help him save the day. Like there's like all these little shots of them like getting ready to go fight Eggman. This is after him and Tails have had their little argument where he's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take care of it. And you have this great moment where they're running away and Sonic refuses to explain to Sally that the laser is going to send them to Mobatropolis. And his excuse, he says at the time, is, well, I don't want Eggman to hear or whatever. However, he does this all while standing completely still, smirking at Eggman, and there's this shot where Sally's like, can't you break this wall or something? And he's like, yeah, I could, but I'm not gonna. And then she gets lasered, and she screams, Sonic! She reaches for the camera. She's dying as far as she's concerned. Sonic has abandoned her, and he just has this shit-eating grin on his face as he watches Eggman think he's won, and then he lets himself be captured. And it's like the funniest, meanest thing I think he could ever do, is just let all of his friends and family think they are dying so that he gets the last laugh against Eggman, so he assures that he gets the last laugh. Incredible.
He knew they'd be fine, and there was no time to explain.
He says with a smirk.
Of course.
It's a great moment. It's one of my favorite Sonic anything. I'm like, all right, this is my favorite Sonic. This is great.
That, and if he had explained things to Sally, or at least attempted to explain things to Sally, she would have come up with a better plan, or at least some kind of counter plan, and that would have gone against the current plan. So no, keep her in the dark, keep her completely without odds. And that way she can safely get zapped, and yeah, it's all part of the plan.
I'll explain it later.
It'll be fine.
No, it's great. No, 100%. He had a reason to do it. It's just the glee in which he refuses because he wants to let Eggman know that he is what. It's great. So this is something I wanted to bring up, and this is something I don't know if anyone's, or I know people bring up constantly in the Iron Dominion arc. Is you have that ending where Sonic and Monkey Kong have just fought the Iron King, and they go off on their little Sally and Monkey Kong go off on their little date, and then Amy shows up and she's like, Sonic, wanna hang? And then Sonic looks back and he's like, yeah, sure, why not? Now, for me, what I always took that as is Sonic is lonely. He likes Amy as like a friend. Sure, why not? Let's go hang out. But the fandom has always took that as like Sonic and Amy were going on like a legit date, and I don't know if that was ever intentional because you never follow up on it. So I just wanted to know for sure, was it supposed to be like they're going on a date, or was it supposed to be no, like Sonic, he's like, you know what, sure, Amy, let's hang out.
It was open-ended. Like it was intentionally vague.
Oh, okay.
Because if somehow the Sally and Khan thing had taken off and gone further, then Sonic is free to move on in another direction. I didn't think it was going to go that way, but, there were actually a few people who did like that pairing, and it's like, I did my job too well. Oh, well.
Oh. Yeah, okay. No, I just always... So, because then that brings me up to, who writes the, like, next time on Sonic? Because I would assume that's not you, right? Or is that, like, the editor's thing?
Honestly, it's a coin toss. If I had a really good stinger in mind, I'd plug it in there. And if I didn't have anything, or if the editor had something better, they would put it in. Okay,
because that's what always made me go like, well, maybe it was supposed to be a date thing, because then it's like, is there love and romance in the air? And so I'm like, either that is Flynn, and it's just, it's obviously like cliffhanger bait, or is it like the editor and it's cliffhanger bait? So, yeah.
In that particular instance, I honestly don't know who did the line.
Yeah. I think the funniest one has to be after, like, whenever Mammoth Mogul wins and he leaves, and then Sonic is like, but don't worry, guys, like, we made it through the night, they're the ones running scared. And it's like, oh, that's a really nice sentiment, Sonic, blah, blah, blah. And then you read down slightly, and he goes, but is Sonic right? Are the villains really running scared? Are they gonna come back better than ever? And it's like, dude, you're ruining the moment. Calm down.
That was probably editorial.
Next time, guy. What are you doing?
Next time, Gadget. Next time. Oh, wait. No, that's something else.
So here's one that seemed like a really long con, which I'm guessing you didn't plan at all. It just kind of worked out. Is that when you come onto the book, you have Adam and Mecha as Eggman's children. And he seems to actually care about them in his own twisted way, which is, from what we can tell, it's that he because he seems to also want Snively around him. He wants a family he can control, it seems to be the idea. Because he's Eggman. And so I just wanted to know, whenever you kind of get to that final scene with him and Snively, and you have that little thing where he's like, oh, you're going to be trapped here forever, blah, blah, blah. And there's this little moment where he's like, it's game over, Snively. And there's like one single panel where he just like stops and he looks down. And I'm like, oh, is this kind of a culmination of, and then he goes, thanks for playing. It's like, is this kind of a culmination of like implying like, he's kind of like, wow, like this is really it. I'm done with my nephew. We're done. Yeah. And he walks off into the sunset. He's won. So I just didn't know if that was kind of something you were pulling from, that kind of loose thread from the beginning of Eggman kind of sort of dysfunctionally caring about his family, or was it just kind of did the artist kind of throw in that panel?
See, I don't remember. I remember it as, he gives his last monologue, knocks on the egg capsule as kind of a ha-ha last rap, and then walks off. I don't remember a moment of pause.
Yeah, there's a panel. He's got his fist on it, but I don't see like any like a hit or whatever. Maybe they didn't convey that properly. But yeah, it was just kind of this silent panel of him like looking down at the crate, and then he's like, game over, Snively. Look down. Thanks for playing.
No, that's him knocking on the egg prison.
Okay. Cool.
He's actively rattling the cage with the poor animal inside.
Which is his nephew. Gotcha. Okay, interesting. Yeah. This isn't like a subtext thing. This is just more of something I've always wanted clarification on, which is, I don't know if you've ever heard down the grapevine, because the internet theory is that Sally survived Endgame because SEGA wanted her to survive, which never really seemed to make sense to me because they let Robotnik die. So I just didn't know if that was just internet, like just fanon or whatever, or if you ever heard down the grapevine if it was SEGA who wanted her to live, or was it just Archie just being like, keep her alive?
Oh shoot, I actually used to know this, because Robotnik's death was with the stipulation that he would be brought back by the next anniversary issue.
Okay.
That wasn't just a full on, we're going to kill him off. Now, at the time, this is the story I've heard, so grain of salt, especially given the source that I had. But the story I heard was that they got permission to kill off Robotnik for the anniversary with the intention of bringing him back at the next one. And they figured the franchise isn't going to last much longer, so we don't have to worry about that. Now, tie-in books like Sonic didn't go for 50 issues. They barely would go for 2 years.
Yeah.
So the fact that they hit such a milestone was an oddity, and having to worry about going beyond that, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Oh, wait, here we are. As for Sally, now, did SEGA step in to keep her alive?
Because they were trying to market her at SEGA World and that stuff.
That's what I thought, but I couldn't remember. Yeah, so Sally still had some market presence at the time.
Yeah.
Like, the Sally miniseries was commissioned to test her marketability. And she did have a presence in SEGA World, especially Australia, which is where you see most of that SEGA Sally merch.
Yep.
I just couldn't remember if it synced up timeline-wise. But yeah, they wanted her to live at the end. Now, from what I remember, the initial conceit was that it was going to be an automation, and the whole thing about the booby trap medals and whatnot was because, she was a robot all along. But what do you remember?
No, that's what I was going to step in and say. They didn't have time to change that issue.
That's
why
there was never a resolution to it.
No, they basically just had some like half-assed answer in the letters page where it's like, Robotnik did it or whatever. And it's like, no, it was supposed to be that was a robot Sally the whole time, and she gave him a booby-trapped medal.
Yep. Okay.
However, that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yep, I remember that too. That coming up was supposed to Sally. The conceit was that Sally was actually dead, but she was a robot. The one who was alive was an automation, like you said. So
to make the characters even more miserable.
Of course, go figure. Just what we need. More plot threads that go anywhere.
Indeed. Okay, cool. Let's see. Then another one that I thought was always interesting was the discussion between Monkey Khan and Sonic when they're kind of talking about Eggman. Because what I always found interesting about it was it didn't really seem like there was ever any conclusive, like, oh, Monkey Khan's correct or Sonic's correct. Because you still have characters like Tails who are like, no, I don't really think you should feel sorry for him, Sonic. But he's like, but we don't have to, murder him while he's mentally ill and can't do anything anymore. And then you have Monkey Khan, who's just kind of asking, like, okay, but why are you able to do that? Why are you able to be so chill about this? And Sonic's answer is, kind of what he gives for why he dated Fiona, which is that he just does what feels right in the moment. And so I just didn't know if there was ever any intention of, like, no, Monkey Khan's definitely in the wrong for, like, his anger and those types of things. Because I've kind of seen that going around in, like, the fandom a little bit whenever I kind of see people read that scene, is they're kind of just like, well, why is Monkey Khan being portrayed as if he's wrong? I'm like, I never took it that way. I just thought it was pretty neutral of just, this is how Sonic feels, and Monkey Khan wants to know, how can he feel that way?
Yeah, and that's it. It's they're completely different mindsets. I mean, Khan suffered horribly at Robotnik's hands, arguably more so than Sonic ever had.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a much more decisive, violent character. So it doesn't even fall within his worldview of mercy. Why would you show mercy to someone who just does not deserve it? And it isn't if I'm remembering the scene correctly, it isn't so much a moral question as it's a philosophical one.
Yeah.
Khan literally cannot conceive of a mindset that would allow for this to happen. And Sonic is a completely different individual with a completely different outlook and a way of doing things. So he's like, that's just how I roll. And Khan's like, I can't
compute. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's always been something that I enjoyed about Pre-boot is just kind of by its nature, it's kind of almost really hard to, like, come up with, like, a moral lesson from everything, just simply because, like, it's kind of hard to, like, not preach to your audience, but, like, create, like, a message or a moral out of a lot of these characters, because, again, they just have so much baggage and history, and like, the story's not really structured in a way where there's, like, a grand point. It's just a comic. It's supposed to go on forever.
Well, you also have the matter of different editors, different writers, and different brand visions over the course of 20-something years. So cohesion you ain't gonna get.
Yeah, so that's why it always stuck out to me, where I'm like, no, I don't think that's the case at all. So yeah. Let's see, what's another one? Oh, this was one I always thought was interesting. So we know that, like, Genesis was kind of never meant to happen, obviously. And so my kind of thought was, there's that, so I guess to back up a little bit. So I'm guessing you obviously knew that ahead of time, because that's how you wrote 225. You have it be set up. I'm guessing you didn't write 225 and then at the last minute you had to be like, do these last 3 pages. It seemed like it all flowed pretty, like, you knew.
I can't remember how much time we had to revise. I don't think I wrote a script and then had to revise it, but
yeah. But the point being is that there's a scene where you have kind of Eggman being like, well, Sally, don't ruin his fun. This is all the reason I'm back is because of you. You let me live and you let Snively go. So thank you. This is all your fault. And she kind of has this moment of like taking it all in, where it's one of those things where it's like, well, yeah, like, sure, if we're going by, like, simple cause and effect, maybe, but it's not, like, entirely her fault. But then you have the thing afterwards where she dies, and then she comes back, and she has that moment where she talks about how she's been given a second chance. And I always wondered if, like, was there supposed to also be an aspect of that, of following up on that plot thread, because we never get a resolution of, like, a character being like, it wasn't your fault, or like, her standing her ground. She kind of takes it in. So I didn't know if it was ever intentional, this idea of there's kind of this extra layer of, like, atoning for the fact that Eggman is back and he's going to kill everybody and turn the rest into robots. Or was it mostly just supposed to be, I've been given a second chance. Sally is heroic. She's going to do the right thing.
Yes and no. Not so much in the context of what Eggman said, because what Eggman is doing is being a jerk and taking advantage of a bad situation, and illustrating that when you take the high road, when you do abide by morality and the law and just being and common decency, there will be people that exploit that.
Yeah.
And you can't help that, because the minute you stop doing what's right, not only have they won, but it diminishes a little bit of light in the world. And it is incredibly frustrating. And I'm remembering Sally's facial expression is like, yep, that's kind of my resting state of being. But in terms of second chance, it was more in the context of she freaking died.
Yeah, for sure.
And now, thanks to literal Deus Ex Machina, that life could be used for others. So it's entirely selfless and heroic on her part. It's not supposed to be in reflection of Eggman being a jackass.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be like the audience is supposed to go like, yeah, you deserve it.
No. It's her sacrifice is in the context of her own selflessness, not in the context of Eggman got under her skin and prompted her to do a heroic thing.
Yeah, no, I always believed she would do something like that in the first place. Yeah, I guess for me it was more of like similar with Knuckles and Mina, where it's like they could have that seed of doubt of like, well, I did let him go is a part of this on me. But yeah, no, I get you. Yeah.
Now, the greater thought to that could have followed up on after the Mecha Sally stuff, but we never got there.
It's a dream. Yeah, gotcha.
Makes me
this
sad.
is one that I was. Yeah, I know, definitely. This is one that was always intriguing to me, which is so it's at the end. It's the Knuckles Sonic Universe story where he's kind of he gets to beat the crap out of Finidivus and kick him off his island, and you have this nice little ending scene where he kind of talks about how even if Finidivus could give him everything he wants from his history or his past, it wouldn't be worth it if he'd have to trade what he had now. And kind of the underpinning of that whole arc that sort of comes to a head when he beats up Finidivus is he's like, I can give you anything you want. And he's like, anything I want? Well, I want my dad back, and then he, beats him up. So part of me wanted to know, because we never got to follow up too much on Knuckles after that anyway, because the next time we really see him is when his entire race goes extinct into some portal into another dimension. So we don't really have time to dwell on Dad. But what I wanted to know is, every time I read that scene, I kind of also get a feeling of he's also kind of talking about his past with his dad, of like, even if I could get him back, because part of his thing is always like, he initially hides himself away and he does all these things, and he obviously wants things to be different. And I always wondered if that moment was also sort of to lean in on the idea of he's gotten to a point where he can appreciate what he has now, even if he could get his dad back or all these things, or learn more about his past. He has his friends who love him now, and he's content with that. Or was it supposed to just mostly be kind of the history thing of just like, I don't need to know?
Sorry, are you talking about the specific scene when he's beating the crap out of Finidivus, or afterwards?
Oh, I'm sorry, after at the sunset.
I guess it's kind of more of again, I can't quite remember.
Yeah, of course. This one I knew especially would be hard to remember.
I think it was more of just a sense of closure, because that's what the Enerjak Knuckles, however you want to say it, that's what that arc was for, was to bring closure to Knuckles and all the crazy crap that had led up to that point, so that we could tie a bow on it and let him go in a different direction and not be defined by a lot of older material that, one, wasn't in theme with the character anymore, and two, was getting increasingly difficult to get approved.
Gotcha.
So, like the endangered species arc that was supposed to follow up was supposed to also tie a bow on that as well, because there was a lot of stuff to do, and it was supposed to bring closure to all the baggage that Knuckles had and give him clearance to move on in a different direction. And that didn't go as planned. But yeah, the post Finidivus confrontation was kind of an acceptance of, this is what it is, and yeah, I have to build from here. There's no going back. There's no amount of regret is going to fix things. It's just, here we are and here we go.
Yeah, and that can encapsulate a lot of stuff about his past, whether that's his dad, his parents, or anything. Okay, cool. yeah, that was just something I always thought. I'm like, am I stretching too far on that one? But I'm like, nah, like his dad is always pretty intrinsically tied to everything. So that was just something I was always curious about. And then yeah, I think I have one more question, and then I think we'll be good. Let's see. This one has nothing to do with really subtext. This is just kind of just a fun thing I wanted to know. Is that I know that the reason Antoine comes back, he doesn't die as intended. He's just in a forever coma. Is because fan outrage. People, they were mad, and I've always wanted to know, what does that look like? Is that a certain amount of letters? Is that an editor seeing a certain thing? Is that you seeing the fan response? Like, what does it look like to have a fan outrage to change something in the comic?
When the editor calls you up on the phone and says, "We gotta talk," that
Oh no.
that's something. That was written mail. That was email. This was kind of pre-Twitter, so forums, I guess. But the amount of just outright no, do not take him away from us, was big enough that Paul kind of called me out of the blue. Not an email and scheduled call, but like, hey, you got a minute? Because we need to do some revisions. And it's like he was impressed by, maybe impressed is the wrong word. He was surprised. We both were surprised by the reaction. We both knew that it was going to come as a major blow. We didn't think everyone was going to go, oh, Antoine, who cares? We expected folks to be upset, and that was the point. What we didn't expect was the passion about it.
Well, these are Sonic fans, dude. I don't know what you expected.
I mean, there's degrees,
Yeah.
and like Sally, we knew going in that we expected, and it might have been because Sally was such a fresh wound, and the collective fandom's nerves were raw, that Antoine going so soon after was a bigger response. If that had been in a void instead, if that had been the big turning point, hard to say. But and part of the whole focus of that arc leading up was to shock and dismay and to tear the team down so that they could rebuild from the ashes and come together better and stronger than ever before. We just didn't get to that latter half. So
yeah, okay.
it's Antoine's survival is proof of fandom response having an impact. Like those of you who were reading in back in the day, if you wrote in to say, "Don't you kill my Antoine, you bastards," it worked. You accomplished a change. And our long-term plans were adjusted with that in mind. So, yeah, that was just straight up fan response. He may have gotten some calls too, because some folks figured out how to call his office. So,
no, that's crazy. Okay, yeah, no, very cool. But yeah, no, I think that's about it. More or less, just as a final thing, kind of the unfortunate side effect of the comic ending is and it not being a situation where there's it's not simply, oh, but we could return to this timeline. Like, it just kind of kept going, but we moved away from it. Like, no, I know this wasn't your plan, but in universe, there is a connective tissue between pre-boot and reboot that says, like, no, that timeline happened. It got deleted. We have remnants of the memories, and now it is gone forever. And so there is kind of like this, the conclusion me and my friend come to about pre-boot is that it's just a horrible tragedy. Like, the narrative is just one giant tragedy of characters just basically just, like, I think almost every character ends in a terrible spot, or they're coming out of horrible spots. And it's just an awful, awful tragedy. And I mean awful in like for them. Because I think it's compelling and cool and interesting. But that's kind of, I think ultimately that's the biggest example I can think of just things that maybe weren't intentional, or that definitely wasn't intentional, but things that just kind of come about through the text itself, and just what it is and where things go. So yeah, overall it was very exciting to kind of get to explain that or discuss that stuff with you. Thank you very much for all your answers, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for supporting the show. Before we cut it off, remind folks where they can find you.
Yeah, so I'm Ian Waffles. You can find that on YouTube and Twitter. And I'm working on a Archie Sonic retrospective and working on a Kingdom Hearts 2 video. So if any of that interests you, you can go over there and check it out.
All right. Thank you so much. Kyle, you got anything to add here at the end?
Nope. Just go read Pre-reboot. I don't know where to start. Go back. Where do you recommend people start, Mr. Waffles?
Yeah.
All the way back at 0?
No. The sad thing is there is a 0.
Yeah, I know.
There's 2 zeros.
I have 0.
Yeah, me too. No, what I always recommend with people is that you either read it from the start with a friend so that you can get through the tough times, and then you'll get the full picture and you'll get the highest of highs, because then you get to see where Mr. Flynn takes a lot of these random plot threads, and that's very satisfying. That's what my friend Lowart feels. If you don't want to go through that, what I always suggest is you go to 130, which happens after a time skip, and just jump into it with the expectation of, I don't know what's going on. Let's find out. Let's basically just look at it as if you are dropped into this crazy world and just kind of let the story unfold around you. This way you get from 130 to 159, you get to see what the old writers are doing, what they're immediately setting up, and then you get to go into the Flynn era, which follows up on a lot of these plot threads and a lot of the older ones. And so that way I think that's a safer transition. Because if you start at 160, I just don't think you'll get as much appreciation for what came before. But if you start at the beginning, most people will not make it far enough to finish it. So,
you miss a lot of the context of what Ian is working with by the time 160 rolls around. So
whereas if you start at 130, you are going to have context for a lot of things. Not everything, but most things. And what's kind of good about Ian Flynn's era is that a lot of the stuff he pulls from that's really far back, they always make sure to reestablish it. They'll give you a nice spiffy Tracy Yardley update-looking flashback, you know?
Right, yeah.
So that's where I would suggest. Unfortunately, you cannot purchase it officially, but you all know what to do. So,
which is go to your local comic shop or search other vendors.
Yep.
Indeed.
I actually, there's a person in the BumbleKast Discord recently who just posted a bunch of Sonic Universe issues still available at their friendly local comic shop. So
really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if that's possible, absolutely.
So sometimes you might get lucky.
Yeah.
So check your local comic shop and see what they got.
And if you can't find any of those issues, you just have to deal with it. Wink, wink. So there we go.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys, for having me. This was great fun.
Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for listening, and we will see you Monday for a new episode of the Priority Q&A. Until then, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and we'll see you next time on the BumbleKast.
Take care.
And we're out!
Sitting here going, yeah, Iron Dominion, that happened.
What? What do you mean?
Well, Iron Dominion, like, I really have to think to remember anything about that. I was like, yeah, I wrote that. We spent, a year on that?
You didn't want to write it, though, you know? Not originally.
That too, but...
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, I mean, I think I remember I told you last time, like, Iron Dominion's my favorite because it's where I came onto the book. And so I was like, who's this monkey guy fighting Sonic? And then it was like, Sally, Mighty, Snively, what?
What madness is this?
Yeah. Because I had come off being a little kid who had just got his Sonic Sat AM DVD collection and being like, oh no, these characters are gone forever. And it was like, oh wait, they've been here the whole time?
Yeah,
what?
Yeah.
One of the things, I'm not going to go full Lost Hedgehog Tales here, but one of the things I do regret we never got to follow up on was when Iron Queen figured out that she was with an auto-automation. Because she can control machinery, and she realizes that she can make him do anything that she wants. It isn't just the absolute lovey-doveyness.
Yeah.
And then she was going to go get her man.
Well, that's something my friend and I have talked about, where we're like, it kind of, I think, it's not good that it got canceled, but in the sense of, since we're eventually going to know what happens next, as far as the official content, I kind of like that as an end for Snively, is that he was just this squirming little worm who just tried to attach himself to anything. And then the moment he really tried to step out, it was too late, and Eggman was done with him. And this is your punishment, sir. But it's like, since it's a comic, and he's not dead, he's going to come back later. So it kind of feels like a really nice send-off to him that he just gets punished because he's a horrible person.
Yeah, that was meant to be kind of like the end for him for a little bit.
Oh yeah, I assume
right, there was definitely plans to revisit it, but it's like, okay, we've wrapped here. We're good. We're done.
Yeah, exactly. No. Yeah, similar thing to like Knuckles, where it's like, obviously that was not intentional, but gosh, is it a fascinating tale that the idea of Knuckles is that you were traumatized so much your whole life, and your indecisiveness ultimately led up to a moment where something completely out of your control from your past, like once again from your past, the sins of your fathers, took out your entire race, your entire nation, took it away from you in an instant. Sorry, sucks to suck.
My biggest regret there was just the full vilification of Thrash. He was supposed to have layers. He was supposed to be a morally gray rival character. And nope, a kid and a Hitler.
Well, I just didn't have time.
Yeah, God, that was not a fun time.
Did you ever get closure on that massive gaping plot hole that I revealed to you about Silver's story?
I actually went and found that script, and it's in there. Like, it's specifically in there. So the thing I can't think of now is whether it was something that the editor wanted, and I just tossed it in there because it was a fight I lost, or if it's something I put in there and didn't think it all the way through.
Yeah. So
But
for
I
those
legit
who, oh god,
I don't know which one it was, and I don't trust myself to say, "Oh, sure, yeah, editor's fault."
what was this? Yeah, past me knows.
It could very well be me going, "Oh, this would be a fun connection." Yeah, but does it work?
Oops. Yeah. So for those who are listening and don't know what we're talking about, obviously the Silver plot line ends with him realizing that Mecha Sally is the traitor. So it's not, oh, she wasn't actually the traitor. Oh, but what I need to do is I need to step in because in this moment she's gonna kill all of you, basically. This makes no sense because in 218 you have Silver in a library, and in the background you see Sonia, Manic, Sky, Melody, and all the kids from 30 years later. So question, if Sally kills everybody, how is there a future where her kids are there and all of her friends' kids and they are smiling and happy?
Don't think about it too hard.
Yeah.
And
that's
the
why
butterfly effect. Remember Betty Butterfly? Yeah, she's a Time Lord.
There you go. I mean, honestly, with this comic.
Yeah, pretty much.
Scourge also had a good ending. I felt like I kind of didn't like with Scourge. I was always worried because I'm like, well, what do you do with him now? Because all of obviously he's gotten stronger. He's got his gang back, but I'm kind of done with him caring about Sonic because we kind of already did that. So I was kind of happy with him escaping. He's gonna go off and do his own thing and be a nuisance to more people on a cataclysmic level. Have fun, buddy. So.
That works.
It's one of those weird things with Pre-boot where it's like, the endings for these characters, as horrible and tragic as they are kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But no, I'm excited for Lost Hedgehog Tales whenever it gets, for whatever form it takes, and definitely excited for that. So
strange, isn't it?
Strange, isn't it?
The evil Flynn.
I'm getting real tired of that phrase because after the previews for Imposter Syndrome 4 came out, yeah, that was the reference. That was intentional, but everyone was making the same joke, and it's like, what have I done? What have I unleashed on the world?
This is this is like everybody who wants to go up to I don't know, Tim Allen and do the grunt.
Oh god.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was one with another character. It was like, oh, it does not compute. And then it was Scourge versus Metal Scourge, and he goes, it's pretty fucked up, right? And I'm like, oh, I miss you, Scourge. Because it's the funny thing is, it's in canon it's in character because in the comic he swears.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. He totally does.
You have the amazing moment where he gets tripped and he goes, ugh, bitch.
Archie. How dare you, Archie? You're so squeaky clean, yet you allow one of your characters to say bitch!
He says whatever you want him to say, but that's my most enjoyable one, I think.
Yeah, that is funny.
Snickerdoodle!
That's a good one right there. Fluffernutter.
Fluffernutter.
You've been listening to the BumbleKast, a co-production of Bumble King Comics and the KNGI Network. Original theme music composed by Ken Coda Snyder. Remixed intro by T-Lopes. Find out more information, along with podcast feeder links, MP3 downloads, and more at bumbleking.com and kngi.org.
You fool. You're trapped with me again.
Oh, no! Oh boy.
Well, since you're stuck with me...
Uh-oh.
Which No, it won't bring up Avatar. There's nothing new to talk about.
Well, I mean, the whole thing has been, talked to death in the fandom. I know that.
I'm actually, I'm at the point where I'm like, maybe I should just, like, lie and make, like, a 2-hour, like, breakdown on why Avatar is not good. Because I want something new to talk about. And, like, just, like, play it extremely sincerely and just, like, go, like, the nitpicker reviewer route and be like, haha, I've broken Avatar. And then hopefully by the end of, 2 years from now or 10 years, we'll get to a point where it's like, oh, yeah, Avatar was never good. Ian Waffles said so. And I'll be like, guys, I love Avatar. You're all just sheep.
Hey, you know what? You can't love something if you can't criticize it at least a little bit, you know?
For sure. Most of my favorites are like they're very flawed, but like the highs they reach are like so high. Like that's what makes them so good, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have any like that where you're just like, oh, there's a lot of problems with it, but I just don't care.
I mean, there's a lot to complain about certain things for sure, like things I don't like, but I mean, I still love it overall. Like, I mean, Sonic is probably one of the best examples.
Sonic's the big boy.
Yeah, of course. Sonic's a big example of that. But I mean, there's plenty to criticize across many different aspects of Sonic, between the people that make his games and everything else surrounding him, the stories, some of the times the gameplay, the lack of polish, all sorts of things, you know?
I was going back and I was playing Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic Heroes, and Black Knight, because I was like, I really liked these as a kid. And, the Sonic fan base is kind of at a point where it's kind of looking back on those games and kind of hyping them up. And so I'm like, all right, it's time. It's time for me to experience it. You know what? Let's see, baby. And then I played all of them, and I hated it.
Well,
it was Slip and Slide City.
I'm a Heroes apologist, but I totally understand why people don't like it. But I played through it again recently, and I enjoyed myself. But I think I've really become accustomed to that kind of slipperiness. I got used to the controls and just was able to deal with it. So, and I mean, of course, I enjoyed like the music pretty much the whole time. Was like, I love the music.
I immediately bought the soundtrack because I was like, this is great.
Yep. The music is excellent. Shadow the Hedgehog, I couldn't get into it. Like
the guns are legitimately fun, but everything else is just hot garbage. It's just not fun.
Yeah, and then like I don't know, it's too try-hardy.
Honestly, I think Shadow should have had more guns. I don't think it's try-hardy enough. That's always my thing with anything that is unapologetically weird. I want it to be completely unapologetic. I want it to go all in.
I guess if it went harder, it would have been funnier. It would have been better. Yeah, like, Bayonetta, that game goes insanely super hard.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously over the top, and that's what makes it glorious.
Nothing I love more than embracing absurdity and stupidity.
Exactly. And that's really what they should have done with Shadow. Instead, they didn't go far enough. They tried to be more serious, but alas, they did not.
The best moment has to be when he walks up to Eggman and he's like, "Sorry, Doctor, it's trying to send you to hell." And then he goes, what? and then he karate chops him in the brain.
What?
What?
What is hell?
There's that one, and then the other best moment has to be come on, guys, this is like taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me.
Yeah. Yep.
If he was like that the whole game, I would love it. Hello, Mr. Flynn.
Hello, Mr. Waffles.
How are you?
I'm entertained. How are you?
Yes, this is very good. This is the show right here. We're already
Very
doing
good.
it, I guess.